our friends at VC Ultimate are proud to sponsor Double Overtime. VC proudly puts community over profit, focusing their support on initiatives that help promote inclusivity. As the first ever sponsor to back professional women's and non-binary Ultimate, VC puts its money where its mouth is when it comes to equitable action. VC also approaches product innovation intentionally to make more players feel like the Ultimate space is their own. Did you know that all VC core products are now 100% gender-free? If your team is in the market for uniforms or custom team gear, check out VCUltimate.com. Not only are they working to change the landscape of sport, VC's performance gear is the best on the field. Thanks to our sponsors of Double Overtime, VC Ultimate. Welcome into Double Overtime, presented by VC Ultimate. We are back as the Western Ultimate League season starts to come to a close, and we have somehow already reached pretty much halfway through the Premier Ultimate League season, but college regionals around the corner. I'm Jenna Weiner, he's Sascha Vogel. Sascha, we have the Southwest and the AC coming up, our picks of Cal and South Carolina on the line. We're currently up by a single point on Deep Look in regionals picks, but going to be interesting to see all the results roll in on Sunday.
Not gonna lie, kind of nervous because I don't really want to watch mechanics games.
Fair, I feel
but
that.
Hoping that we'll just not have to do that and make Charlie and Keith do it instead.
Hopefully. So I was very relieved when even though Utah State made nationals, Washington then also made nationals, making it even in the Northwest men's for us. So worked out, and yeah, we'll see how things go this upcoming weekend. And Western Ultimate League action, we'll talk about it more later. Your Utah Wild going on the road to the Pacific Northwest. Going to be interesting to see how that goes. So yeah, another full exciting weekend of Ultimate. I can't believe it's already May. I don't understand how it is already May. So yeah, that's a whole thing. So should we get into it?
Let's do
it. Talk Premier Ultimate League action. Jump right in. 4 games on the slate this past weekend, although only one of which was particularly close. So where should we start? Maybe start going backwards. Start with the game that didn't even finish, technically. And I would say unusual circumstances, but it happened last season too.
When did it happen last season?
I think it was Indy playing New York, and the game didn't even reach half. This time it was Philly playing at Raleigh. Game did reach half, barely, before a lightning delay was put into effect. Lightning delay went on for at least a couple of hours before they called the game. 9-4 in Philly's favor. So Philly remains undefeated while Raleigh drops their first loss of the season, the first game of the season. So Sasha, thoughts on this game? Obviously not a ton to go off of with only one half of action.
Yeah, it's hard to really say much really because of only one half of the game. But I thought it would be closer at halftime personally. It just seems that Raleigh, I think we discussed this at the very beginning of the season, that I thought that Raleigh was going to be taking a smaller step back this season with, they had a bunch of key players that are not with the team anymore. And it's a lot of so I guess the team's a lot more youthful. It's a lot more of the younger North Carolina talent.
Yeah, Raleigh definitely not the same team seemingly that they were before, although they still have a couple wins in the book, and we're going to talk about it more, but their matchup coming up with Nashville in, I think, just a few weeks' time is looking all the more critical for the South Division. But also, I think maybe there's a question of, does this result, again, albeit abbreviated, say more about Philly or about Raleigh? Because Philly continues to look pretty good. And again, sort of looking forward, we'll talk more about these games down the line, but looking ahead to the Philly DC matchup that we're going to get on May 13th, that's going to be huge for the East Division. Both those teams potentially going to come in undefeated at that point.
Yeah, that honest, that game is probably the most important game for the East Division. For I guess the East Division title right now, with Portland having lost a few games now, New York having lost to Philly, and DC and Philly are tied up. So yeah, probably the most important game for this division.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see again. Not necessarily a ton of huge conclusions we can draw, but Surge continuing to look in pretty good position, and I'd have to go back and double check what our picks were for championship weekend, but I know that there were definitely some Philly area folks who were calling for Surge to, if not make championship weekend, win the championship outright before the season started. So it'll be interesting to see going forward how Philly ends up continuing to play. They have a week off this upcoming weekend before playing at DC. So Surge Shadow, circle it on your calendars, May 13th. So that was one of the East Division teams in action. Then we had an East Division matchup, Portland playing at New York as part of Amherst Invite. 22-12, New York wins. Sasha, you want to tell us a little bit about the game, or certainly how New York looked bouncing back after their initial loss to Philly?
Yeah, full strength New York looks great. It's very obvious that Yina Cartagena and Elizabeth Mosquera are like the key pieces to this team to make this team championship level. Cartagena, in her first game with the team, goes off with 8 assists and 3 goals. Literally half of the scores that New York had was through Cartagena. Jenny De Jesus had a pretty good game as well, with 3 assists and 4 goals. Like this, it's hard to try to compare this team, like looking at their loss against Philly and then looking at this game. It seems like 2 completely different teams when we have the Colombians on the team as well.
Yeah, and it continues to remain just sort of an astounding prospect. We just talked about the big Philly DC matchup coming up, but New York could also be very much in the conversation. Yes, they have the loss to Philly, but if they beat DC, they've already beaten Portland. That would put them at a 2-1 record in the division. So this East Division is going to be one to continue to watch, and I believe it, but I can't believe that one of the 3 teams, one of Philly, DC, and New York, is going to be left at home. Regardless, just straight up no chance one of them is going to miss out, which feels, at this point in the season, I don't know if that's entirely correct, but that's how it's set up. So unless you move to an 8-team playoff or buys in a 6-team playoff or something, then you're going to continue to have these sort of situations, especially when the East Division seems just so much stronger across the board. Although Portland, maybe the punching bag after a really good record last season, I think there's a chance, given that they have the doubleheader with Philly. They still have to play at Philly after losing in Portland to Surge. I think there's a chance that Rising end up only winning their 2 out of division games. They've already been Austin on the road, and they play Milwaukee. And that will wrap up their season along with the rest of their East Division games. So still, 3 East teams, only 2 are going to make it to championship weekend. It'll be really interesting to see how that continues to play out in the weeks to come.
Like I said, New York, completely different with Cartagena and Mosquera on the team. Moving on to the Midwest, we had Minnesota Strike versus Indy Red. And this was one of the lowest scoring games I've ever seen in the league. The score was 10-4, final score. And we had Philly and Raleigh at halftime with 9-4. The weather was not great. It was just not good weather at all.
Yeah. I mean, pretty classic, Midwest spring weather. We saw it affecting North Central regionals in the college division as well. And yeah, it was 1-0 after the first quarter. It was 3-0 Minnesota at halftime, and then teams started to get it together in the second half. Minnesota continuing to show that they are, or certainly should be, favorites out of the Midwest. Now sitting at 3-0 to start their season. That's a really strong place to be. When looking at the rest of the Midwest division, every other team currently has 0 wins on the season. So Strike in fantastic position, looking like clear favorites to make it out of the Midwest. And we'll see again how they end up shaping up in the rest of their divisional matchups going forward, but they have to host Gridlock this upcoming weekend. So that'll be a great matchup. Yeah. And then one more divisional game in the PUL this past weekend, Nashville playing Austin. Sascha, this was your game to watch for the week, and you got not a double overtime game, a single overtime game. Nightshade taking down the win. Tell us about it.
All right, so it started off pretty slow. Like it was pretty windy. After the first quarter, it was only 2-2. So it was like teams trying to figure out the wind, figure out each other. And so it was pretty sloppy. After that, going into the second quarter, it started to it was a 5-5 second quarter. Like, so they figured out like what, like they made their adjustments for the wind, made adjustments for each other, and they ended up tying at 7s at half. Few runs throughout the middle. Torch went up by a few breaks. Nightshade brought it back, tied at 7s at halftime. The third quarter got very, very windy. It was like an extreme upwind, downwind. Like pulling upwind, most of the pools didn't even make it to half field, or they would just like get to half field. And there was one where it got to half field, stood up, and started rolling backwards. Yeah, it was
always a little bit of chaos when they start rolling on their own accord.
Yeah, they're sentient beings, these discs. So the end of the third quarter, it ended up being 10-12 in favor of Nashville. Nashville turned up the intensity, got some breaks, and then for the fourth quarter, it was a little slower as well. For Nashville specifically, Torch came out and they ended up breaking a few times to bring it to 13-13. And then Nashville, well, there was a very long point. It was like a little over 4 minutes long at 13-13, where it was just going back and forth, little sloppy. Wind happens. Nashville goes up, scores with 11 seconds left on the clock. And so that forces Torch to go upwind. This is an upwind point that they're going to have to score to take it to overtime. So the buzzer beater play, it was great. There was a buzzer beater play with 11 seconds. Elise Bjork gets the centering pass, hucks it almost all the way to the end zone to Jamie Estes, who was in a crowd of people, came down with it immediately. As soon as he touched the ground, threw a nice little flick to beat the buzzer to Sydney Overman, force overtime.
Very exciting. I mean, that's not something that we've seen in the Western Ultimate League, because Western Ultimate League is possession all 4 quarters. Yeah. And, there's obviously been discussions about what is better or not, but you appreciate that on occasion the buzzer beater does like make an impact and results in overtime forcing play, which is an upwind too. Super impressive.
Makes it a little more exciting sometimes. In overtime, it fell apart a little bit for Austin. They received the first pool out of overtime, but Nashville broke 3 times, and then Torch held once, and that was game.
Yeah. Yep. 3 straight breaks in overtime.
3 straight breaks in overtime. You could
great for
tell,
Nashville, but
yeah, you could tell like watching the game that like the intensity in overtime was like on a scale of 1 to 10 throughout the game. I would say the intensity averaged around a 6 or a 7, and it just got ramped up to a 10 in overtime for both of these teams. It was a lot of fun. Like overtime was fun to watch. Maybe not for Austin Torch fans, but as a neutral fan, it was fun to watch.
God, Torch just can't seem to finish games off at home. This was at home in Austin. And last season, they lost, I think, in overtime to Portland. They lost a close game to Portland earlier this season. Just brutal for Torch. And they're sitting at 0-3 in the South Division. And I don't think there's, I guess maybe mathematically there's a way, but I don't know if there's a way back for Austin right now to make championship weekend. They already are sitting at 2 divisional losses and have played half of their season. I think your Austin pick is basically toast already.
Hey, we discussed this off air that these picks should not count because we did not know anything. We didn't have a schedule. We didn't have anything.
We can continue to discuss it. But okay. The LA not going in your favor in the Western Ultimate League, Austin not going in your favor in the Premier Ultimate League. I understand the want to not count the preseason picks. So
it's been rough. But like it's not like Austin is bad either. Like they're a good team. Like their point differential is -4 over these 3 games. Like they are
brutal.
Yeah, it's like similar to how like Onyx in the Western Ultimate League, like they lost all these games, but their point differential was like they're keeping it close, keeping it tight. They just can't seem to finish the game.
Yeah, but unlike Onyx, Austin only has a couple of. Onyx had 2 more games to play in their season, so we'll see. I mean, I don't know if they're mathematically eliminated. Yeah, I don't think so. But it's not looking so great for Austin so far. A quick standings rundown while we're here, given that we're seeing a lot more divisional games so far. We talked about the Midwest Division, Strike sitting at 3-0. Monarchs, Indy, Columbus all winless so far. Monarchs technically second at the moment with only 1 loss instead of 2 for Indy and Columbus. South Division, Raleigh and Nashville tied 2-1, top of the division so far. That matchup again is going to be happening the weekend of May 2021. So got a few weeks, but have it circled on your calendars for the South Division. And then, as mentioned, Austin sitting down at 0-3, Atlanta 0-1 after the game against Minnesota, and in the East, 2 undefeated teams, Philly and DC, 3-0 and 2-0 respectively. New York 1-1, Portland at 1-2. And Sascha, we did get confirmation over last week. Like I think the day or two after we recorded, because we recorded Monday last week, recording on Wednesday this week. That officially we got confirmation. It will be a committee that will choose the final team at championship weekend in the Premier Ultimate League. TBD on committee makeup and when they'll make the decision, presumably just at the end of the regular season. But yeah, any thoughts on getting confirmation that it will be by committee? Twitter reaction, not super happy with that decision.
It's definitely interesting, and like I can see how it can go well. I can also see how it cannot go well. There are people that are going to be happy. There are people not going to be happy. Like it's the same
thing with the algorithm last year, though.
Yeah, exactly.
The same
thing. So on the Premier Ultimate League website, it says about the committee, says the 4th team at PUL Championship Weekend will be selected by power rankings, with the highest ranked non-division winner claiming the wildcard spot. These power rankings will be voted on by a PUL committee of experts and published after weeks 6, 8, and 10 to the seasonal results page in PUL social media. So we will be seeing the first power rankings after this coming week.
I had forgotten that they're gonna do periodic updates, which Ultiworld is also doing power rankings, mostly authored by yours truly. So it'll be interesting to see, to compare my power rankings to the PUL's power rankings, or if they just rip from my power rankings each week. Because I think I do a pretty good job with them. There hasn't been a lot of movement lately in the Premier Ultimate League. Not enough big matchups yet, but PUL schedule is pretty backloaded. So we're going to get a bunch of games in these upcoming weeks. So anything else PUL related, Sascha, before we move on to the one and only Western Ultimate League game? where I was doing commentary. Hopefully you got a chance to tune in, folks.
Let's take a quick break.
Great.
And then we'll talk about it.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, talking Western Ultimate League, San Francisco punching their ticket to championship weekend. Don't go away. We will be right back. You take the field with basically two things, yourself and your cleats. That's why you need the best on your feet. For me, I want support and stability to make sure I'm always able to cut and plant with confidence. Tokai cleats are specifically designed for Ultimate. The toe stud helps you get in and out of your cuts quickly, and you just can't get that with soccer cleats. You won't find much ankle support in soccer cleats either, or a fabric-based upper section that helps cool off your feet, which is especially great for long days on turf. That's why they're on feet of elite players like Robin Fennig, Kayla Hilton, and Levka Walczak. If you want to put your best self out on the field, make sure you're bringing the best with you at tokaiultimate.com. That's TOKAY-ultimate.com. Welcome back to Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. We're going to talk Western Ultimate League. San Francisco beating Arizona 16-8. But Sascha, you and I were talking during the break. We said that Austin Torch in the POL wasn't entirely out of it, despite having 3 losses and somehow also a -4 point differential over those 3 games. However, we realized that the chances are very, very slim and require a 3-way tie at the top of the South Division. Do you want to walk us through it, or do you want me to? Because we realize it can get kind of complicated.
It does get complicated. It requires Atlanta to win out.
Requires Atlanta to finish 3-3.
Yes, so they would have to lose to Austin.
So here's the situation, folks. Basically, the best that Austin can do is finish 3-3 at this point. They win out, they finish 3-3. The winner of the Raleigh-Nashville game, since both teams are sitting at 2-1, that team will have 3 wins. And the first head-to-head tiebreaker for the top of the division is head-to-head, which Austin loses to both Nashville and Raleigh at this point. So if it's just a head-to-head, Austin wins out versus the winner of the Raleigh-Nashville game, then Austin is out, assuming they don't get pulled in by the committee, by the power rankings. If Atlanta goes 3-3, then with a loss to Austin with wins over Raleigh and Nashville, then it goes to a second tiebreaker, which is point differential in division games, intra-division games, which there's a chance that Austin could win if they were to theoretically blow out Atlanta, and other stuff happen, basically. But that would require Austin winning out to win on the road against New York and Philly. And Sascha, we just spent the first half of the show, a chunk of it, talking about how strong those teams are. It seems like, if you were to give odds, it's one of those, they aren't technically eliminated, but it's got to be less than 1%. If you're thinking sort of standard statistical, like they're not out technically, but they're all but out at this point, which is wild. We're not even technically halfway through the season because it's technically an 11-week season because of the showcase game at Poultry Days. And we're only 5 weeks through. Wild that Austin could already be out. Any other thoughts on that after I attempted to explain the semi-complicated situation that could possibly result in them winning the South Division if everything breaks their way?
Yeah, it's good luck. It's possible, but not probable.
Very, very, very improbable. It's so tough because unbalanced schedules. Some teams have only played a single game so far. Atlanta has only played 1 game. Austin has already played 3. And also that -4 point differential, 1 loss by 2 points, 2 losses by 1 point. You get one of those results to flip your way, and we're talking a very different situation. Instead, Torch already basically out of the running. It would take, again, a basically near miracle for them to somehow win the South Division, assuming they don't get in via the power rankings. So tough if you are an Austin Torch fan.
I wonder are they allowed to add people to their roster?
I would doubt it. I mean, even then, would that make the difference?
I mean, it might if they went out and got, I don't know, Cammy Groom isn't.
The Cardenases.
Yeah, the Cardenas sisters. Cammy Groom isn't playing anywhere. Like, what if they went out and just got all these crazy good players? I don't know. I don't know the rules.
They might still lose to Philly or New York.
You're right.
Anyway, enough POL stuff. Again, we're not even technically halfway through the season, but we might already have one team basically eliminated from competition, from championship weekend contention, which is a kind of brain-breaking thought at this point, especially when that team has a -4 point differential across their games. So, moving on to the Western Ultimate League, we had a team out of championship weekend contention because it was a winner-go-home game in San Francisco. I was on the mic doing commentary. I hope you tuned in. I think I checked our viewership numbers at one point, and we had a fair number of people watching the game. So, hope folks enjoyed. It was a bit of a blowout. In the end, 16-8, San Francisco with the win. Falcons picked up a couple of back-to-back breaks at the end of the first quarter to take a 4-2 lead, and from there, it was basically all she wrote. And just to highlight one of the key moments in the game, and it came at the start of the second quarter, because Falcons were on offense, gave up 2 break chances to Arizona on completely unforced errors. One on a drop, on a reset that was completely unmarked, and the other because this is a bit of a throwback to a 2018 situation at Club Nationals. Sam Applegate seems to score for San Francisco for the hold to give them a 5-2 lead, only for the observers to roll that she hadn't actually made it all the way into the end zone and so wasn't in yet. But Sam didn't realize that the observers had called her not in to the end zone, and so threw the disc up into the air as a spike, resulting in a turnover. But then, like a few throws later, Arizona had a low throw, and a few throws after that, it was a San Francisco hold. It was a situation where Arizona could not convert at all on offense. Their offense was sputtering. Their 8 points, the lowest number of points scored in a Western Ultimate League game so far this season. And this Arizona team that beat Seattle and Oregon in week 1 on the back of their defense, 0 breaks, 0 break conversions, plenty of break chances, 0 breaks. And by the fourth quarter, it was, I think, a 7-point margin. After the third, it was all but over, and it was holds the rest of the way. Sascha, any thoughts from viewing from the outside?
I'm surprised, to say the least. Like, 0 breaks for Arizona. Like you said, they were running off of their D-line offense the whole season, and having 0 breaks in the game is concerning.
I mean, yeah, concerning is one way to put it. They just didn't look like they had anything. I mean, Chip Chang, Paige Applegate were, again, running the show for the Sidewinders, but the number of high stall count throws that I saw Chip throw and the number of just missed passes from Arizona was kind of stunning to see. And the Falcons got away with it at times, especially, like, again, that first possession. First point of the second quarter, that could have been an Arizona break, could have brought the game within 1. Instead, it's a Falcons hold. Their lead goes to 3. They break the next point. They score 5 straight goals to make it 6-2 and continued to roll on from there. Melina Wiebe, great for San Francisco. She's only played 3 games for them. She played the first 2 games of the season and then played this last game of the season and scored 15 goals total across those 3 games, 5 goals and 1 assist against Arizona. Shayla Harris, 4 blocks to lead the way on defense, and Eliza Pugh, the Falcons' overall leading goal assist thrower, at 18 assists on the season through 3 assists against Arizona. And for Arizona, you only score 8 points. Not major stats for any one player. Paige Applegate, a couple of assists, along with Chip Chang, also a couple of assists. Nora Landry and Kez Gazelle, both with a couple of goals for Arizona. And that puts San Francisco in the championship weekend. Arizona continues to be unable to win away from home outside of the one win against LA in LA back in week 6. And the Falcons get their first home win of the season. And they will be in Seattle. They have over a month to rest up ahead of championship weekend because of how the schedule sets up. So by the time we get there, Sascha, I'm sure we'll be having the conversations of the rust versus rest discussion that always comes up when teams have different layoffs between games and matchups.
Real quick sidebar, when you're talking about the spike that wasn't a spike, it reminded me of a funny story that happened to me. Not me. I was playing the game. I was playing the game. I don't remember what year it was, but I was playing on BYU's B team, and we were at Trouble in Vegas before the whole thing with the guy running it. And
that whole thing.
Yeah, we were playing against Colorado School of Mines, who just qualified for nationals in D3 this year. So congrats to them.
Congrats.
Playing against this School of Mines and Vegas fields, they are kind of close together, and they kind of like, some of them go horizontally, and then the field next to them will have 2 vertical fields.
Yeah,
if
as
that
you
makes
often
sense.
see at crammed field sites.
Yeah, and so the School of Mines guy caught the disc, and he spiked it, and he was like 15 yards outside of the end zone, which resulted in a turnover. And so we're like, cool, great, turnover, our disc, and yeah, we ended up breaking. A couple years later, Colorado School of Mines comes to a tournament in Logan, Utah in the fall called Big Sky Warm-Up. And it's all the Utah teams. It's just a fall warm-up tournament. And so they came to that. And I was talking to one of the School of Mines guys about what happened then. And I was like, hey, do you remember this? Like, last time I played you guys, this is what happened. And he goes, oh, you mean Spike? He's right there on the field. After that,
Dude got the nickname?
They got the nickname Spike. And that was probably one of the funniest experiences I've had playing Frisbee. Anyways.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, and I made a reference to Club Nationals, Lisa Picaithley, for Molly Brown famously, at this point, kick spiked when the Observer had called her not in. Yeah, I think it was like a semifinal game. It was part of Molly's run of not making semis, or making it to semis and not going any further for a while. So, but didn't punish the Falcons this time. So that works out. Some summary things, season summary. We may not do this for absolutely every team, but given that we only had 2 teams finish up their seasons this week, might as well. Falcons finished 4-4, despite never scoring more than 16 points all season. They did it twice, both in their win against LA in week 1 and this week 8 win over Arizona. As mentioned, they won their first home game of the season after losing to LA and San Diego. So they won 3 road games, although technically 2 were kind of neutral site, because they won at LA in week 1. They won versus Arizona in San Diego at the Beach Bowl back in, I think that was week 3. And then in Utah versus Colorado in week 7. So technically road wins, but also some kind of neutral site type of games. Close margins in both the Arizona and the Colorado game, not so much against LA and Arizona in this one. As mentioned, Melina Wiebe, 15 goals, goal leader for San Francisco. Eliza Pugh, 18 assists, followed by Gina Schumacher with 16, and Midi Chang at 14 assists, and Julia Mankoff, 15 blocks, picked up a few more in the game against Arizona. As for Arizona, they once again got 2 wins at home in week 1, and then their first ever regular season road win against LA in week 6. Notably, Arizona never scored more than 17 points all season, coming in week 1 against Seattle. Their overall stat leaders, Megan Maxfield, 16 goals, followed by Kez Gazelle at 15 and Carly Garrett at 13 goals. Chip Chang, far and away the assist leader at 23. And on blocks, Cody Lippincott, 14 blocks, Helen Eifert, 11, and Melissa Dunn at 10 blocks. So quick season summaries for both teams. Falcons will move on to championship weekend. They joined San Diego as the Southwest Conference representatives. Not sure. I don't know if we have full confirmation about the format for championship weekend, but I would guess that it's going to be top of the Northwest versus second in Southwest and vice versa. And for San Francisco, I was saying this on air during the game, Falcons are rooting for absolutely anyone but Seattle to win the Northwest. I think they will back themselves against Oregon, Colorado, or Utah, especially Colorado and Utah, given their close games at Wild Wild Weekend. They do not want to draw Seattle in the number 1 Northwest slot, assuming that is how the matchups end up going for championship weekend. Any other thoughts, Sascha, on the game from the single Western Ultimate League game this past weekend?
I think it's unfortunate for Arizona, going to championship weekend last season to not make championship weekend this season. And just shout out to San Francisco doing the opposite, just not having a super great season last year and then coming out and making championship weekend this season.
Yeah. And notable 2 different situations where San Francisco plays at home with a championship weekend bid on the line. Both resulted in wins. However, because of no tiebreak rules in effect this time, their win got them in this time around this season. All right. I think that will wrap us for the moment. Oh, one last news that, again, we recorded on Monday, so we missed this news from last week. Western Ultimate League teams all put out different Pride jerseys. They all look pretty cool across the board, so go check them out on, I think Breakmark's website should have them, or the Western Ultimate League social media accounts. I think some PL teams also released Pride jerseys. I want to say the PL teams that are also associated with Breakmark.
Yes, that is correct.
I think Columbus and
Indy,
Nashville, maybe.
Possibly, I cannot remember.
I'm pretty sure it's at least Columbus, if not a couple other teams. So go check those out. Always love seeing teams supporting the LGBTQ community with Pride jerseys. So, Sascha, anything else before we move on to picks review and our picks for this upcoming week?
No, let's pick them.
Okay, you have once again made up a little bit of ground on me. You got, so I got the San Francisco win at home over Arizona. However, I picked against Philly and I picked against Nashville, both of them coming back to bite me. I got a message from a Surge player being like, sorry that we keep messing up your picks. But really, that just means that I'm going to be picking Philly going forward. TBD, that DC matchup will be interesting to see how we both end up picking when it comes down to that in a couple of weeks. So I am currently sitting at 26 and 13. You are sitting at 24 and 15 in picks. So still a 2-pick lead for the moment. But you'll see how things continue to play out. Chipping away. Our upcoming game picks, I think we briefly mentioned this. Your Utah Wild having to go on the road at Oregon, at Seattle, San Diego, playing LA in a unfortunately meaningless game in terms of standings for the Western Ultimate League in the POL. New York does a Midwest double road trip at Minnesota, at Milwaukee. Atlanta plays at Indy, and DC travels north to play at Portland. Where should we start, Sascha? POL or WL picks?
We're going WL.
Great. Utah on the road, PNW. Are you going to do it?
I'm picking them against Oregon.
Okay.
And
I will pick Oregon at home.
But I am picking Seattle at home.
Honestly, probably the smart pick. Still, Utah win at Oregon would put them in pretty good position heading into the Rocky Mountain Rumble. I don't know if that would guarantee them in at that point, but it would certainly help their chances of making it to championship weekend. And then San Diego at LA, I'm going to choose the top of the Southwest Conference over the bottom of the Southwest Conference. So I will go San Diego at LA. How about you?
I am also picking San Diego.
All right, so one different pick for the Western Ultimate League. New York road trip. Minnesota at Milwaukee.
I will go first. You know what? I'll just pick both of them real quick. I'm going New York for both of them.
I feel like that's the right choice. We don't know. It's Wednesday morning. We don't know the traveling rosters yet. I'm kind of tempted, again, for a little bit of the for the content, to pick Minnesota at home, which I think I will do. I think I'm going to pick Minnesota at home and New York at Milwaukee. I mean, a full strength New York should be clear favorites. I don't know if, say, Cartagena and Mosquera are traveling at this point. So, TBD. Atlanta at Indy is the next matchup on our list of games. This one's interesting because neither team has played all that much, and Indy 2 losses, Atlanta 1 loss. Indy's losses by at least bigger margins, but it doesn't help when you have to play at DC. And then their most recent loss to Minnesota. I guess it's probably my pick first on this one, since you started for the New York road trip picks. Oh, I'll pick Atlanta. I think they looked pretty good against Minnesota. If you compare head-to-head matchups, Atlanta only lost by 2, while Indy lost by 6. So that would seem to point towards a sole win, even if it is on the road. And we have DC at Portland. Sascha.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm also picking Atlanta because I
skipped over that.
No, it's fine. I had the exact same thought as you did.
Yeah.
DC at Portland. I don't think I can not pick DC.
Yeah. I'm also going to pick DC. I mean, look what Philly did on the road at Portland. If Philly can do that, yeah. I think DC can match them.
Yeah, exactly. So different picks this week. You have Minnesota and I have New York, and then you have Oregon and I have Utah.
Okay. If you get right on both of those, if Utah wins at Oregon and New York wins at Minnesota, you will have tied up the picks.
Let's go.
So, exciting. That'd be picks tied up going to the last weekend of the regular season for the Western Ultimate League. One last bit of business, Sascha.
Our highlight of the week. Jane Cook. I don't know what I could say about this play. It was just between two offenders, a great layout block at like the very beginning of the game too.
Haley Bunnis has it again, going up line. She's going to shoot it, trying to stretch the field. Cook is there with the dive, and she gets the D.
And that is classic Jane Cook textbook layout, full extension. Defense, we're going to get another look.
And it was a beautiful shot. It hung, it was flat, but Cook's so explosive. Look at that layout.
Yeah, great hustle play, great layout. And she accumulated 3 blocks that game as well. And like we said, Jane Cook is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, same third throw from Indy, but also 2 targets. And Cook just made up ground and super clean between the 2 Indy players who I presume were sort of like, you catch it, no, you catch it, sort of miscommunications or everything. And Cook was like, no, I got this. So came through, cleared it out. And that'll do us for this week's show of Double Overtime presented by VC Ultimate. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, keep an eye out on the Western Ultimate League. I think the Utah-Oregon game is happening on Friday night. So a little bit of a slight schedule change for that than the usual Saturday-Sunday schedule. And then, continued action in the Premier Ultimate League. Again, things are ramping up in the POL as the Western Ultimate League starts to wind down, but we still got the Northwest Conference to be decided in the Western Ultimate League. And of course, college regionals. I'm going to be honest, that's what I'm going to be paying attention to on Sunday, is all of the regionals nonsense that's happening. And we're going to see if we have to watch all those mechanics games or if we get to make Charlie and Keith do it. That'll be it. For us, I've been January. He's been Sascha Vogel. Sascha, any other things?
Bye.